Greetings everyone. This is the second podcast of our channel and is going to address the fundamental confusions that have made their place both among Muslims and non-Muslims about what the Quran says. This may be due to many reasons. The most common one is that people mostly rely on what is interpreted by others, whether it makes sense with the credibility of the Quran or not. These reasons will be discussed in detail with relevant topics. So far, we'll talk about the most common confusions that the Quran has itself addressed in the beginning of the Quran. Next, we talk about these most common confusions. The first confusion is that the Quran is for Muslims. The second confusion is that the Quran represents Arab culture. And the third confusion is that the Quran is a book of law. Some of these confusions exist among non-Muslims, some exist among Muslims, and some overlap. They exist among both the Muslims and the non-Muslims, and that obviously includes atheists. We will address each of the above confusions via the initial verses of the first chapter of the Quran, which clearly identify what the Quran is and who it is for. That is, the audience of the Quran. This means that those who do not fall in this definition of the audience will not be able to understand it properly. It will be a waste of time for them. The first chapter introduces the Quran as Hudal lil Muttaqeen. It's further added that Allazina yu'minuna bil ghaibi wa yuqimuna as-salata wa mimma razaqnahum yunfiqun. Wallazina yu'minuna bima unzila ilayka wa ma unzila min qablik wa bil akhirati hum yuqinun. The first word of this sentence indicates that the Quran is a guidance. The rest explains its audience. And there are various features of the audience explained in this sentence. So the first thing to know is that the Quran is a guidance. It is a GPS that takes you to a destination. And we know that to use a GPS, you must be familiar with its operating system to know how it works. So these verses act as prerequisites to use the Quran, and these are free of time and space. We will address this in detail, breaking up the sentence into the categories that define the features of its audience in the forthcoming slides. The first feature of the audience is given as Muttaqeen, as the sentence starts with Hudal lil Muttaqeen, which means that it is a guidance for those who stay away from corruption or dishonesty. They do not decide about right or wrong based on their personal or political interests, but as a factual instance. The second feature is defined as Yuminuna bil Ghaib. They believe that knowledge is limitless. No matter how knowledgeable they are, there are components of knowledge out there that they don't know. So they are always keen to learn more and honestly. The third feature of the audience is yuqimuna salata. They establish connection. The word salat has the root word as sal, means connect. Its derivatives in Arabic are wasl or visal or muttasil, which all mean connection or connected or adjacent. But the most relevant example is yusalli, which is used in Arabic for the horse that is closest to the leading horse in a race. The leading one is called sabiq, the foremost, and the one next to it is called yusalli. which is next to the foremost. In this way, this feature of the audience of the Quran to establish closest connection to those who are leading in the preceding features, honesty and knowledge. And how they establish connection? وَمِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ يُنْفِقُونَ. They share their means of sustenance with the needy. Whatever they need for their own sustenance, they consider them important for others as well. It could be the living standards, education, health requirements, social development. Everything that is important for us is important for others. Next, they possess the feature يُؤْمِنُونَ بِمَا أُنزِلَ إِلَيْكَ وَمَا أُنزِلَ مِنْ قَبْلِكَ. They believe that all prophets have conveyed only the truth. No matter what time and space they were in, they tried to make the world a better place for everyone. And finally, وَبِالْآخِرَةِ هُمْ يُوقِنُونَ. They believe in accountability, whether in front of God or in front of themselves, but they believe that there will be a time of assessment and compensation, where they have to pay off what they do wrong and to be paid off for what they lose. It could be today, tomorrow, in months, in years, or in the world hereafter. Now, the most important thing of the above phrase is that all these prerequisites are universal. I will explain 3 examples from the Quran. First, this is the first verse of the preface, the introduction to the Quran, Alhamd, that the Quran is introduced or commended by the creator and caretaker of all the worlds, Rabbul Alameen, for those who wish to stay on the right track, which is the pathway of the blessed, the honorable, not of the disgraced ones. Next is the first ever verse of the Quran, placed in chapter 96 according to its relevance. Iqra bismi rabbika allazi khalaq, khalaqal insana min alaq. The prerequisite to understand the Quran is to read, which means observe and discover the world around and recognize its creator, who created human beings, keeping a natural connection with them. And third are the verses 1 to 4 of chapter 55, explaining the importance of education about the Quran for all humans. Ar-Rahman allama al-Quran, khalaq al-insan allamahul bayan. The Creator was considerate about educating humans about the Quran, hence created them with the capability of speech and expression. We can see in all these verses that they are addressing humans, all the humans. So they are universal. Hence we can conclude that the Quran is not created for Muslims. In fact, any person who understands its universal philosophy and falls in its audience defined above will be a Muslim. For example, in chapter 3, Al Imran, verse 67, Prophet Abraham is declared a Muslim. Secondly, the Quran does not represent any culture. If interpreted correctly, it must work for humans living anywhere. And thirdly, it offers fundamental guidance for its audience, regardless of gender, race, and ethnicity, to formulate and facilitate laws according to the requirements of their time and space. Thank you very much for listening to me.